Well, welcome to the Open webinar. As many of you know, we have some interesting topics. This one's kind of interesting because we've had a lot of customers that ask about the VMware settings, and we do have a link, but we wanted to create a video of it. So this is going to be about talking about tuning iSCSI target settings for ESX. Today's the 25th March, and what we will be covering is creating the iSCSI volume in our target, accessing the hardware configuration from the console screen, and then we'll go ahead and modify the default values that we have in the V6 and V7 target settings. And then I'm going to show you about the change in ESX on the initiator, where to set those values in the advanced settings. Now what we're going to do first is let's get into DSS. So this is pretty much similar as it would be for V6. So I'm going to go right into the volume group. Pretty much a lot of you do know that once you create your RAID array, this is what you'll see as a unit, S00X. And then we create a naming convention as VG for volume group. And of course you see 00, 01, and of course I had more, there would be more. So we'll go to VG00 right here on the left as it populates the existing iSCSI volumes that I have. Of course, we can create NAS volumes, snapshots, and fiber channel volumes. Now, I've already created one just to save time. We're going to be working with logical volume 0002. It's denoted as an iSCSI block IO volume. For those who just really want to know how to quickly create an iSCSI volume, scroll on down. You'll see in the action pull down menu, create new iSCSI volume. Here, the next option, you could just create the volume or go ahead and create the new target automatically. Or you can do it to an existing target. I like to create my own target for obvious reasons for that. Typically, I may want to do my own naming convention instead of the default. Of course, you could use a volume replication. And when I'm working with VMware, personally, I don't like using a file IO volume. I like to use a block IO setting for my iSCSI target. I just don't like a file system and then another file system because VMware is going to format it with its file system. So I just take the default, apply the size that I want, and then click the apply button. And your target is ready to be, your iSCSI volume is ready to be put into a target. So now we'll go into configuration and then iSCSI target manager and then targets. Here I can create a new target and name it. Change the default naming convention. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to, instead of target 2, I'm just going to name it this one, webinar, and I'm going to name my alias webinar as well. Okay, now I've created my target. Now we got to assign the iSCSI logical volume that we created, the 200 gig that we'll be working with. And so I see it is available. I just verified with the down arrow key. I see that the size is 200 gig. And I'm not going to need to change the Scuzzy ID or the LUN number, so I'll just go ahead and attach it. So once that's completed, then now I know that what I'm going to be using to connect to this from VMware, I'm going to want to go ahead and scroll on down to the target name, and I might as well go ahead and copy that. So let's just go right to the VMware side, and because we're really ready to go to connect to it, but I want to show you something. If we go ahead and connect to from the ESX to the DSS V7 to iSCSI target I created, you want to go into the configuration tab, and I'm using version ESXi 5.1. So I go configuration, then right here on storage adapters. Then you scroll down to your iSCSI software adapter. Here I'll go right to properties on the right side. I like to use static discovery, especially when I'm using an auto failover, or if you're having in an HA environment with ESX, use the static discovery instead of the dynamic. So I'm going to go ahead and add that target that we just created. So here we're going to put the IP address of the DSS V7 server's IP address. And of course, it's asking for the iSCSI target name. So we'll go ahead and paste that. That's the target we created. And click on OK. Now, once it gets listed here, what you can do at this point is go ahead and go to click on the target and then click on settings. And then go to advanced. And here are the settings that you really want to match and make sure. So let me pull up something I put together on a notepad. If you see here on the left, what we're going to be looking to verify, because I know in 5.1 it takes it by defaults. These are the defaults. But in DSS V6 and V7, that's not the typical settings we have. So this is why we're pointing this out to you. If you look, the max received data segment is the same as the max exmit data segment. Okay, so you want to make sure those values are the same, and it's 262.144. If we scroll down into the to the VMware, you'll see that the max received data segment is already by default 262.144. So what we did is we are recommending to follow and match the initiator settings on ESX side to the DSS side. So let's point out a couple more for you. The max outstanding ready to transmit value is 8. And by default, that is what VMware sets it to. So if you look here, the max outstanding, it's kind of small, and I can't grab it and highlight it for you. So if you just look where my arrow is at, here you'll see that its default is 8. So these are the settings we want to match on the DSS side. So I'm going to leave this up, okay, because really what we're going to do now is go ahead and set the target on the DSS side to match VMware's side. If you look, let's just go ahead and kill this and just make it cleaner for everybody. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the DSS console screen, and you want to be able to open up either a PuTTY session, SSH session that you want to be able to get into the console screen, or if you have a keyboard and mouse and you're directly connected to the server, you can do it here as well. Okay, so I'm already logged in. This is what you see in the console screen if none of you have ever seen it. I'm using straight PuTTY with VT100 Plus for my terminal keyboard settings. And of course, you log in as default username CLI for command line interface, and then whatever password you put in there. I'm going to use Control-Alt-W. This is where the hardware configuration is located at. And we do ask you to enter the GUI password, not the remote console password, but the GUI password. So I'm going to have some functions here that I'm going to be able to work with. So I'm going to select tuning options, which is the 0 option. And if I scroll down on to number 5, it's the iSCSI daemon options. And then I want to select number 1, the target options. So we created the target called webinar, and it's down here on the bottom. And now if you look, these are the defaults that DSS presents when it creates a target. You're probably asking, well, how come you just don't put them as VMware's defaults? Well, because there's a lot of other different operating systems out there. And this is probably the most valued set, the most recognized set. It'll still work with VMware, but we kind of know that Linux likes to be matched with another Linux target. So if you're using a Red Hat or Ubuntu or CentOS or even VMware, you want to be able to match what they have. Or you can change certain values. If you were set on this value, then change the Linux value. But for VMware, this is what they like. So if we go ahead and change these values, let's go ahead for the first one, the max received data segment length. Here we have 26, 21, 44. Okay, and apply that. And the max burst length we want to change. And that'll be 104, 8576. And of course this, the max exmit data segment length, must match the received data segment length. Alright. Now we have the first birth length. That is matching already, so we don't have to change that. The data digest is set to none. The max outstanding ready to transmit, we default to 1. VMware, I just looks like I bombed out. I hit the wrong key. VMware likes it to be set to 8. So let's go ahead and set that to 8. And of course, the initial ready to transmit is set to no, so we need to change that. And the immediate data is set for yes, so we'll change that. And header digest is done. So you want to make sure that everything, recheck your numbers. I've made mistakes. So it looks like my numbers all match here, and we're good to go. So now let's exit out of here. And oh, by the way, you cannot change this if you're running in an active-active or an active-passive cluster mode with the DSS v6. It'll lock you and tell you have to stop the cluster. So it's always good when you change these values before you start the failover or get some downtime maintenance window if you're going to change these values. Otherwise, we're going to lock you out. And also, you don't want to change these values while you have VMs running on that target. So you don't want to do this on the fly. If you are, pause your pause your virtual machines and then make these changes. Okay, so now we are ready to connect and do a rescan. And let's give VMware a second. Now let's go look at paths, and we see this path is now ready available. So now we'll go into the storage, and let's see if we can add that or rescan it, and it should pick it right up. There it is. It says it's inactive right now, so let's give it a second. It might pop up. So there's our webinar for this iSCSI, and there it comes up. So that matches our size. I've already put state on there. I've even deleted the target and recreated the target. I changed the target values, and even VMware still picks it up. So that's interesting. For a lot of you, I've had questions. What happens if we delete the target, we remove the LUN, we change the values of the target settings? Will VMware ESX pick it up? And as you can see, yes, because we deleted the target, we recreated the target. Now, if I delete the iSCSI volume, well, then that's different. Yes, it's going to be lost forever. But it's a good, helpful hint to know about. So real important things to know is when you change these values, make sure that your VMs are paused or shut down, and then rescan and reconnect. Also, if you're running active-active, make sure, or active-passive, that you stop the cluster. Then you'll be able to edit and modify the target values. I'm going to leave this up for one more second so everybody can take note of it. It'll be, like I said, this video will be up and you can pause the video. Once, I think about a week and a half, this will be posted, and then you can go ahead and collect the data. Well, that's it, everybody. If there's any questions, feel free to always email us at pre-sales@open-e.com. Take care. See you next time. Bye-bye.